Her back was the turn to me, her hands resting gently on Ethan's shoulders, guiding his posture into place. He was perfectly still, yet I could already see a subtle change in the way he held himself. He was under the impression that this was all my little surprise for him, completely unaware that I had a far deeper reason for arranging this entire scene. Before we get into the heart of it, do me a favor and tap the like button and subscribe. It takes just a second, costs nothing, and honestly, it helps us out more than you can imagine. All right, let's begin. The towel was already perfectly draped when I took a step back. The air in our quiet den carried the clean, sharp scent of eucalyptus, with a softer, almost floral note lingering just beneath it. Something I'm sure Chloe had added herself. I let my fingers graze the edge of the towel near his shoulder before moving away. "This is for you," I whispered. "Just let go. I'll be right here." A small smile touched his lips, though his eyes remained closed, his entire being sinking into a state of calm. He's always cherished these moments, especially the thoughtful little experiences I plan for him. I retreated to the background as Chloe entered the room, a picture of quiet composure, her dark hair pulled back into a simple, elegant knot. She offered me a single, knowing glance before her full attention settled on Ethan. Her presence was steady, her focus absolute. She placed her hands on his shoulders and began to work, her motions fluid and practiced, born from years of experience. Her touch was methodical, professional, and entirely in control. Slowly, I watched the tension melt from his upper back. I sank into the plush armchair in the corner, just out of his direct line of sight. From my vantage point, I could observe her every move, the way she adjusted her pressure and pace as she worked. We existed in a comfortable silence. She was completely absorbed in her task. Ethan shifted slightly, his face turned down, utterly relaxed. With incredible care, she repositioned herself to maintain a consistent rhythm. Her technique was unwavering, a seamless and unobtrusive art form. I watched him sink even deeper into the table as the session went on. She never faltered. I leaned forward in my seat, resting my chin in my hand, a silent observer to the unfolding scene. He believed this was a simple, thoughtful gift. He thought I had left the room, giving them privacy. What he couldn't possibly know was that I was still there, completely present, watching everything from just beyond his view. Chloe's rhythm remained even as her hands moved along his back, and a smile played on my lips. It was all happening exactly as I had envisioned. She adjusted her stance slightly, her balance perfect as she continued her work. The towel stayed precisely where it was. Her movements were always consistent, contained to the safe upper expanse of his back. He let out a slow, deep exhale. His hand shifted almost imperceptibly against the table, but there was something in the movement that caught my eye. It was more deliberate than before. She paused for just a beat before speaking, her voice a low murmur, as if it were part of the experience. "I think she has the technique down even better than I do," she whispered. His eyes stayed closed, but I saw his brow lift slightly. It wasn't a look of surprise, but more like a puzzle piece had just clicked into place. A subtle change rippled through his chest, as if he were caught somewhere between curiosity and a dawning uncertainty. Chloe remained silent, watching him for a moment before she resumed her work. One of her hands paused at the center of his back, while the other adjusted her angle for leverage. She remained above the towel, her composure absolute. I leaned forward in my chair, now resting my elbows on my knees. My own curiosity sharpened as I watched him, seeing him caught in that space between fully relaxing and staying alert. He said nothing. Neither did I. Her pace was still so steady, so methodical, he wasn't certain yet, but the seed of understanding had been planted. As she circled the table, her palms traced a smooth, continuous path, easing his posture further. When she reached his shoulder again, one hand came to rest there. The other adjusted near his side, never once breaking the rhythm. His shoulder twitched. I didn't move. I just smiled. Because now, the change in his posture was undeniable. He knew. This wasn't a standard session anymore. He just hadn't decided what it meant. Without a word, I rose from the chair. He couldn't see me, but I wanted Chloe to. She glanced up for a fraction of a second as I settled onto the low ottoman right beside the table, now well within arm's reach. I was still fully dressed, my posture relaxed, as I rested my hand on his arm. He flinched slightly at my touch. His eyes flew open, but only for a moment. He remained silent, his mind clearly racing, because in that instant, he understood. He understood exactly what I had orchestrated, and how deliberately I had let it all unfold. Chloe continued with her steady rhythm, both hands moving with practiced control along his back. The towel was undisturbed. The entire feeling in the room had shifted, but none of us moved. His eyes were open now, and they stayed that way. Not even when Chloe glanced toward the edge of the towel without touching it. Not even when she leaned in to speak, careful not to make contact. But I didn't need to hear her words. His hand tightened on the edge of the table. His expression was transformed, focused. The calm was gone. He wasn't relaxing anymore. He was paying attention. Chloe smiled as she stood, her eyes meeting mine for just a second. I gave her a slight nod. She moved with that same serene control she'd had all along. I reached out and rested my hand on his upper arm, a gesture meant to ground him, but it only made him pause again. As she circled the table, her hand hovered for a moment near his side before returning to his shoulder. He followed her with his eyes, his gaze flicking after her, barely blinking, until she reached the foot of the table. Then she spoke again, but this time her question was for me. "Are you sure?" I stepped closer and gently guided his gaze to meet mine. "I didn't bring her here for me, my love," I murmured. "She's here because I wanted this for you." He swallowed hard and then nodded. Chloe moved closer, kneeling beside the table. She leaned in, speaking softly once more. The towel remained exactly where it was. His posture shifted, a small but significant adjustment. I stayed right there, my hand resting lightly on his arm, my focus unwavering. He tilted his head as if trying to decipher my meaning, but Chloe answered for both of us. Her hands stayed on his upper back, her pace unbroken. He adjusted his arm slightly as she continued. She leaned in and whispered something. His eyes flickered, alert, but silent. He shifted again, tuned into every single second, and that was it. The moment it all became crystal clear. He eased onto his side, adjusting himself without a sound. Chloe moved with him, calm and adaptive. The towel didn't move an inch. I leaned in and placed my hand on his shoulder, a soft pressure to let him know I was right there with him. "It's okay. She's with us." His eyes met mine. He nodded, a silent confirmation that he understood. She leaned over him, placing her hands on either side of his chest with deliberate balance. He drew in a steadying breath. He remained still, his body rigid with focus, his eyes locked on mine as if I were his anchor. I gave him a slight nod, hoping to reassure him. She shifted forward, slowly adjusting her position without breaking our shared gaze. Her hands moved along his side, wiping away the oil in slow, even strokes. He sat up slightly, resting one tense hand on the table. A soft exhale escaped him, as if releasing a held tension. I could feel the electricity between us, a mirror of my own anticipation. She reached for a nearby towel, folded it with care, and set it aside, her eyes never leaving him. He tensed as her hands came to rest against his side. The room was silent, the only connection being their intense focus. He seemed calm, aware that this was a moment of his own choosing. I leaned in and pressed a reassuring kiss to his cheek. He spoke my name, his voice soft but steady. I smiled as I pulled back, my hand brushing his shoulder. He looked completely overwhelmed, as if every hidden emotion had finally surfaced. Chloe adjusted her balance, her movement slow and deliberate. He shifted slightly, making himself more comfortable, no longer trying to anticipate, but simply watching her, reading her every move. The only sound was the soft creak of the table. His hands settled again, resting gently near her waistline. His torso tensed as she moved. I could feel the strong, steady rhythm of his heart. She looked at him intently, her expression calm and unreadable. He tilted his head, his eyes closing for a moment. His hands remained still, then shifted as she moved. He shifted again, his expression tightening as he caught his breath. He pushed slightly against the table, a sharp exhale escaping him. I took his hand, holding it gently in mine. His fingers curled around my own. He seemed, for a second, lost in the overwhelming sensation of it all. Chloe moved with steady intent, her focus absolute. He exhaled softly, his body finally relaxing slightly. I brushed a kiss against his temple and then stepped away. "Just breathe," I whispered. She placed her hands over his, steadying them. Her movement slowed, becoming even more deliberate. Her entire demeanor had shifted, now singularly focused and unwavering. He was still, responding quietly to her presence, the uncertainty gone. He was catching his breath, his legs adjusting beneath him as if seeking a more stable foundation. I kissed him quickly, steadying myself as our closeness deepened with each shared beat of silence. A quiet breath escaped him as I stepped back. We hovered there, in a moment that needed no words. His legs were still, as if braced. Each moment that passed between them grew more focused, until he seemed entirely caught, completely still in the center of it all. Now, tell me what you honestly think. What was going through Ethan's mind right then? I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading every single one.
Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.